Tell me if this is something that you can relate to. So you're like, okay, cool, I need some new clients. You're out there, you're posting on social media, you're in your stories, you're in your DMs, you're talking to people, you're doing the engagement, and then you get an influx of new clients. And you're like, this is awesome, more money, lots of stuff for me to do. And then you kind of like do the client work and you're just so busy doing the work that then you're not posting as much on social media. You're not in your DMs as often. You're not engaging as much. And then you get to the end of all your client work and you're like, I have no more clients. So then you go back to posting on social media more, being in your DMs, engaging, having all those conversations.
Welcome to Go Get Great, the podcast for aspiring entrepreneurs and ambitious small business owners. I'm your host, Brittany, owner of Brittany Miller Socials and mother of 3. Go Get Great is all about helping you make life and business work together. You'll learn about the fumbles that helped get me and my guests to where we are today so you don't have to make them. So come join the journey with Go Get Great.
So this is a special request episode to answer the question, what would putting social media look like and how would I sustain my business? So someone recently asked me this, and instead of DMing them the answer, I really thought that there are probably a lot of other people that are out there asking this question. So it would be a much better idea to put the answers together in a podcast episode so that everyone has access to the same information. Because not gonna lie, this is something that I have been asking myself a little bit lately. So really, this is actually a question about building sales funnels more so than it is a question about social media, which is something that people often don't think about because we don't always have the awareness of how the different activities that we do actually lead to sales in our business. And it's not a bad thing per se, but I just want to kind of broaden your mind to kind of what a sales cycle looks like and how all the different activities that you do kind of fit together to make that happen. And once we can identify where social media fits in a sales cycle, then we can figure out what options we have to replace it if it's not something that you actually want to do anymore. And I will be telling you some of the substitutes that you could do if you truly want to quit social media, because you can, and your business will be likely perfectly fine. So we're going to talk about all of that today. So a typical sales funnel looks like, for most businesses, looks like seeing content on social media, following the person, and then seeing potentially some more content before buying. So it can be really short as those like 3 to 4 steps, but it can also be a little bit longer. It could look like seeing content, following on social media, checking out some long form content like listening to a podcast, getting on someone's email list, and then buying. So the length and complexity of your sales funnel often is determined by the type of product or service that you offer, the clients that you have. It could also be determined by how old your business is. Typically, businesses that have been around a lot longer have more complex sales funnels because they have more assets built in their business that they can use for things like that. But the biggest determining factor is usually the price point of your product. So if you sell something that's highly consumable, think like toothpaste or makeup, things that we use every day, like food products even, vitamins would potentially be another example of that. Something that's like a staple in everyday life for people. It's a lot easier to get sales because we know we need those things, and it's just a choice of choosing who we're going to purchase it from versus someone like me who has to have a longer, more complex sales funnel because I offer something that's sometimes seen as a little bit more of a want than a need. And also because there needs to be a really, really high level of trust because I have a high price point for my services. Someone needs to really understand the value that I provide and how I'm going to help them improve their business. So spending less time working in their business, how to generate more sales, all of those wonderful things before they're ready to work with me. So of course it's going to take a lot longer than someone who's selling deodorant. And I just kind of want to put a caveat out there. I talked a little bit about this in last week's episode, but in general, people are all experiencing longer sales cycles, even if you have a highly consumable product like deodorant, just because we're bombarded with so much advertising. We're actually in an advertising fatigue. It's become challenging for us to make decisions about purchases, even for things as simple as deodorant. There's antiperspirants that help you sweat less. There's some that don't stain your clothes. It just feels like there's so many options, and sometimes we are in decision-making fatigue and we just don't know which option to choose because they all sound like things we need and they all do different things, but really don't want to have 7 different types of deodorant that we're applying every day. So it's just really challenging for our businesses to make purchase decisions right now because of how accessible marketing actually is. So I don't want you to stress out. And the example that I shared last week was for someone who's been following me for over a year now and is just kind of getting to the point where they were ready. Well, they hopped on a call with me. So they were ready to work with me, except the service they were looking for is not something that I offer anymore. So it is a much longer sales cycle, just all across the board. So to answer the question, like I said earlier, of how to quit social media, we have to look at the role that social media actually plays in that sales funnel of, see content, connect, buy. And with that outlined, we can see that social media is primarily, it's the top of funnel tool. It's how we connect with new people. So in essence, it's a lead generation. We are connecting with new people who then enter our sales funnel and eventually purchase from us. So it is entirely possible to replace that because social media is not the only form of lead generation out there. That being said, if you were to quit social media tomorrow without implementing a secondary lead generation tool in your business, what would happen is that eventually you would stop receiving sales and stop having new clients booked because your sales funnel has dried up. You stop putting new people in the top and eventually all the people in it will filter to the bottom and they're either going to sign or they're not. And then there's nobody left in the funnel, which is not ideal because what that typically means is no more sales. And when you don't have sales coming in, that's really, really not good for your business. But I did also want to note that this is actually something that can happen with a business who is actively doing lead generation. Typically, it happens unintentionally, but it is often something that service-based businesses specifically experience, but it can happen to product-based businesses as well. So tell me if this is something that you can relate to. So you're like, okay, cool, I need some new clients. You're out there, you're posting on social media, you're in your stories, you're in your DMs, you're talking to people, you're doing the engagement, and then you get an influx of new clients. And you're like, this is awesome, more money, lots of stuff for me to do. And then you kind of like do the client work and you're just so busy doing the work that then you're not posting as much on social media. You're not in your DMs as often. You're not engaging as much. And then you get to the end of all your client work and you're like, I have no more clients. So then you go back to posting on social media more, being in your DMs, engaging, having all those conversations. So you have put your business into a cyclical cycle because you have a period of time where you're doing a lot of lead generation, getting in new people into the top of your funnel. And then they sign with you at the bottom of your funnel and you get really busy there. And now you're not putting new people into the top of your funnel. So when you're done with those clients, you have to start all over from ground zero. And that's really frustrating, but it is something that I think a lot of business owners do experience. So whether you're kind of in a phase where you want to quit social media altogether, or you're in a phase where you still want to be on social media a little bit, this is a really helpful episode for you to understand how to continuously have leads in your business so that you don't have a dry sales funnel. So in case I haven't stated this outright yet, if you want to quit social media and still have a successful business, what you need to do is find a different lead generation tool. And like I said earlier, there are lots of options out there. So I want to outline what some of those are for you, because oftentimes we do these activities without 100% realizing that that's kind of what we're doing. So we'll start with some offline stuff first, and then we'll do some online examples. So most people understand that networking is a form of lead generation. You go, you talk to people, you have conversations, and eventually they purchase from you or they work with you. But kind of the second side of networking is actually a little bit more of a personal side. And just in general, being in communities can actually be a form of networking. So whether those are online communities or in-person communities, they may not be networking specific, but they're still helping you create relationships with people, which eventually leads to sales. So you could be in a dance group or an acting troupe. You could be on a sports team and you get to know those people. You start to trust them. You talk about what you do when you're not out there playing soccer. And then all of a sudden you have a new client or a new customer in your business. That's still technically lead generation. So anything that you're doing where you're in person having conversations with people, that is lead gen, my friends. Another couple examples of offline lead generation, you could be sending out flyers, you could be doing any type of print advertising. That could be, putting your name on a business card, although those have to get handed out. So there's still kind of a second step to that. Advertisements on benches, on buses, on billboards, anything like that, that is a lead generation activity. Some of those are harder to track how effective they are, but they are still technically lead generation. I'll give you another personal example. Last week I had someone book a call because they saw me driving my car around, and my car is lead generation for me because it has the name of my business plastered on the side of it. So literally me taking my child to the doctor's office last week, a couple weeks ago, was lead generation for my business because my car is mobile advertising for me. So even just doing daily life activities like that helps me grow my business and generate leads. I would not exclusively just drive my car around because I do not get enough leads from that for that to be my only lead generation tool. But having a combination of these is going to help you offset the need to be on social media as much. So another few examples: cold calls, cold emails, all lead generation tools. Not always lead gen methods that people want to use, but they are still lead gen nonetheless. You can also do hire like an appointment booking company. That's technically lead generation. You're not doing it yourself. Someone else is out there trying to generate leads for your business, but still they're getting leads, so it's lead generation. Word of mouth referrals is also a form of lead generation. So having your clients love working with you so much or love your product so much that they tell other people, that's a form of lead generation. Whether you incentivize them or not with like referral programs, they're still out there generating new leads for you by talking about how much they love it. Kind of on a smaller note, this is technically more nurture than lead generation, but can sometimes be lead gen if done effectively with things like SEO. So having a podcast or blog or even a vlog on YouTube, people can find that content that you're putting out there, and then that would be their first interaction. They see the content, then they follow you. That's still technically lead generation. And sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area when people say they want to quit social media about what it is specifically they want to quit. Sometimes it's just that they want to get off Instagram, whereas posting a video on YouTube feels more accessible to them. Technically speaking, Pinterest is mostly considered a social media platform, but to me, Pinterest is not really social media. So even if I were to decide tomorrow that I was frustrated with Instagram and quit that, I probably wouldn't be quitting Pinterest, because Pinterest I quite like, and I find that it's so much more accessible. So it also depends a little bit on your definition of what quitting social media actually means for you. Pinterest is sometimes it is a really awesome lead generation tool, and it doesn't have necessarily the requirement to show up consistently. You still need to post, but it's, less face on camera, less video. You just kind of schedule it and it does its thing in the background. To me, it's more passive lead generation than Instagram, which can sometimes feel like a full-time job. It is a full-time job, guys. So all of those things as well. And then I mentioned this a little bit a minute ago, but SEO activities are technically lead generation. The more SEO you do, the more organic traffic you're going to get to your website, to your Pinterest content, to your blog, to your podcast. And then people are seeing your content and then following you, hopefully getting on an email list, etc. So those are also still considered top of funnel activities for your business because they generate new leads for you. And then the last one that I'm going to mention, and this is a lead generation tool, but it's kind of in a bit of a separate category just because of the type of lead gen it is, and that's paid advertising. So that is a very common lead generation tool, especially as your business gets bigger and you have the budget to support that, because the more you pay to play, the better your results are, is typically how that goes. And I'm putting this in a separate category because some people would still consider this social media, same as Pinterest. To me, it's really not. Like, it is. I'm actively advertising on a social media platform, but it doesn't have the same level of involvement that organic content on Instagram does. So typically for paid ads content, what you're doing is you're creating ad collateral, and then you're going to run it for like 6 weeks minimum, and then kind of see how it does, maybe 4 weeks, depending on how much you're kind of testing, in essence, to see the effectiveness of it. But you're going to run it for a while, and then you're going to tweak it a little bit, and then you're going to find something that works, and you're just like going all in on what works until it stops working. And sometimes that means that you're refreshing your ad content once a quarter, once every 6 months. Some things work longer, some things work well longer than others. So to me, it doesn't feel like social media, again, same as Pinterest, because it's not as active. I do it once and it works for a while. And it is a very effective lead generation tool. I use it in my own business. I don't use it as consistently as I would like because it can get very expensive. But like I have it running right now to promote leads to my masterclass, although that's probably past by the time you're listening to this episode. But it's really effective for things like that. Helps me grow my email list. People see the content, they follow me, they sign up for the masterclass. Now they're on my email list. They're going to come to a live masterclass, and then hopefully they're going to purchase. So that's another example of a sales funnel that specifically starts with paid advertising. So basically I can sell my course more or less directly from the ads that I'm running because of how people flow through that sales sequence. And even if I wasn't posting about it on social media, I'm still likely to generate sales from it. So technically social media based, but it is a different type of lead generation that you could use. Something else that I want to note too, I have, I think, 2 different podcast episodes already about paid advertising. I'll link them down below, but it's not something that you want to go into on a whim. It requires a lot of intentional planning and a lot of preparation in your business outside of just creating the visuals and the captions that you're running. You need to make sure that you have email marketing set up, that your website's really solid. So there's a lot of like prep work before you can do that. And you also have to be in a place where you've got the budget to support those ads. Like I said, like you're typically talking a minimum of $500 a month. If you're working with like a paid ads company, oftentimes that budget needs to be a lot higher. Plus you pay them to run the ads on top of that. So it is not an inexpensive project. And really when you're putting that level of money out there, you want to make sure that you're getting good results from it. So you really may have to make sure you have that foundation in your business before. And there's a lot of strategy to it. And a lot of businesses do paid ads wrong because they try and drive paid ads to like a sale or directly to a purchase. And I don't know about you, but I don't buy from people I don't know. And when I see a 50% off sale and I don't understand what it is 50% off of because I don't know the business, it doesn't work. So just some food for thought. Definitely, if paid ads is where you want to go with that, you've got a lot of research and homework to do before you're ready to hit start. That is not something you're going to be doing immediately after listening to this podcast episode. Please don't. Okay. So a couple other things that I want to mention, because I think that's really important to talk about this. So now that we've talked about some of the different forms of lead generation and how many there actually are, I thought it would be good to talk about why people tend to start with immediately social media. And again, I talked about this a little bit in last week's episode, the difference between fast and slow marketing. But social media is usually seen as easy and accessible because it's often something we're doing already, just not with a business focus. So we're like, okay, we kind of understand this. It's free to do. And I put free in air quotes because it takes a lot of time and time is money. But it's seen as free advertising for your business. So a lot of people think that that's a really great place to start. And it is. But it's also very highly competitive and it requires, like I said, a lot of your time to do it effectively to get to the point where social media is your one and only lead generation tool. And a lot of people want to quit social media because they're exhausted with doing all of the work without seeing the results, because there's fine tuning that needs to happen in your social media strategy to actually get you the results that you're looking for. It's not that it can't work. It's just that it's not being done 100%. So it's not working. That's kind of the big difference. And if you started your business on social media, that's totally cool. And if you are ready to get off social media, that's totally cool too. Whether you want to do it forever or do it never again, neither are bad options for you. You just have to decide which form of lead generation is the best for your business, because it doesn't matter which one you're doing. It either costs you time or it costs you money. And both of those are kind of like a pro-con of which one you have to give. So usually as a new business owner, you're more willing to give time than money because you don't always necessarily have the startup capital. As an older, more seasoned business with some sales under your belt and hopefully a little bit of budgeting, you might be rather like more willing to invest in your money than your time, because your time eventually becomes more precious. You're ready to stop hustling. So it's that trade-off, and you have to decide kind of which one is more important for you at the stage of business that you are in right now. Okay, so I also want to note that there are a couple secondary functions of social media. It's not just a lead generation tool. Social media does actually serve as a little bit of a nurture tool as well, and it also serves as like a purchase confirmation check, like a gut check. So when you go and buy something, especially when you shop online, if you're not familiar with the business, you typically do research because there are unfortunately lots of scams out there, and you don't want to pay your hard-earned money for something that you're not actually going to get in return. So if you decide that you want to move off social media completely, there are still some preparatory steps that you need to do so that those pieces are still in place for people and you're not just completely killing your sales funnel, because although you have a separate lead generation, you've now taken a huge chunk out of your nurture sequence. So when you see a paid advertisement, let's say, especially if you do not know the business, what's your next step? Typically, I'm guessing that I'm assuming from personal experience that your next step is usually to check out their profile. So that means you need to have a really, really solid profile, which is why I created my course, Profile the Profit. Because whether you're actively growing your business on social media or not, people are still looking at your social media profiles to see that you are in fact a legitimate business, the same way they check your website to see that you are in fact a legitimate business. So you still have to prep to have those things ready for people to see when they get there. And also, like I said, it's a bit of a nurture thing as well. So much like creating long form content and sending emails, which you're absolutely 100% gonna have to have if you're not active on social media, because people need to be seeing messages from you consistently to move them through the funnel. It's not enough just to get them in the funnel. You have to move them through the funnel, or they're still not going to be sales for your business if they stay at the top. And that comes down to nurture content. So that means you need to be posting something, I would say weekly, whether that's a podcast, a blog, a vlog, you're hosting office hours, something. You need to have some form of touch point with your audience every week so that they're reminded that you're there, that you're adding value, that you're building that trust so they're ready to make a purchase. And the same applies whether you're a product or service-based business. You still have to trust the business you are giving your money to. And that long form content usually is associated with an email to let people know that the long form content is there for them to go and consume if they're not seeing your social media content regularly. But again, if I go to someone's profile because I've seen a paid ad or because I've listened to a podcast and I'm interested in hearing from them, again, oftentimes I'm still checking their social media profile and I want to see that their most recent post was not 4 years ago. So even if you want to quit social media, could you hire a VA or do it yourself, but commit to posting once a week or once every 2 weeks? Even if it's not like some big multimedia reel production, if it is a static image, but just something to keep your account relevant. Or like I said, could you outsource that to a VA, to an intern in your business? Or even if you needed to hire a social media manager to post once a week, because that's going to be significantly less expensive than having them do full-time social media management for you. But is there a way that you can still keep your social media presence active to have that same nurture effect that's required to move people through the funnel, even if you specifically are not actively on social media all the time? So just something to consider. Like I said, yes, you could quit social media altogether, but you really need to make sure that you have other very solid nurture strategies available in your business so that people don't completely lose touch with you once they start in your sales funnel. Okay, so given what we've just talked about, I wanted to give you another example of what a sales funnel would look like outside of my paid ads masterclass example, if you're not using social media. So again, I consider Pinterest not to be social media. So a sales funnel for me could look like Pinterest. Then they go to a podcast episode or a blog post of mine. That's where I'm directing them. Then they get on my email list. Then they see more of my long form content in my emails, and then they're ready to buy. So that's another example. Or you could do, like I said, paid ads to a landing page with a freebie on it where they download the freebie to then get on your email list. They get some emails from you about your freebie and how it's related to a product or service that you offer. And then hopefully they will buy said product or service by the end of the email sequence. So that's another example. So like I said, to have a healthy sales funnel with a new lead generation strategy, plus you need a way to nurture your audience, usually with slow marketing. And again, listen to last week's episode if you don't know what I mean by slow marketing. You can effectively replace your need to rely on Instagram, which is awesome. I hope that it's just a huge sigh of relief for you to hear that you do not have to be on Instagram if you do not like being on Instagram. So definitely possible to quit social media. and still sustain your business, but it takes intentionality and it takes planning and it takes investing your time into different activities. So then the question comes back to, again, is it that you don't want to spend time on social media because you don't like social media? Or is it because you're really busy and you don't have the hours required to do that? Because if it's about your time and the hours required, then shifting your time to different activities may not be the solution to your problem. I mean, eventually, long term, it will be, because the benefits of using slow marketing is 100% better than using fast marketing, but it takes a lot longer to see the results of that. I used, again, in my episode from last week, the example of weight loss. You don't just magically eat a salad and wake up the next morning and be 50 pounds lighter. Don't we all dream for that? But if you're doing it consistently day by day, eventually eating enough salads, working out enough, getting up early, drinking your water is going to lead to weight loss. And slow marketing is the weight loss that you're looking for in a very sustainable and scalable way. So whether you're wanting to quit social media or not, I do recommend a lot of those slow marketing techniques to help you let Instagram eventually be a choice and not a requirement. So if you are ready to quit Instagram and that's 100% where your heart is at, and you want some help making sure that you have the foundation ready in your business, then I would love to invite you to book a coaching session with me where we can really go through and do an audit of your business to see what you have in place and what things need to be added or thought about before you 100% take that step and you sign out of your Instagram account on your phone. But I would love to help you do that if that's something you like, so you can find out more in the captions about what my coaching sessions look like. We do offer like 90-minute sessions where we could dive into something like this, or we have more consistent long-term coaching options for businesses that have quite a few steps that they need to put in place to get to that place. So on that note, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Go Get Great podcast. I really hope that you found this informative, because like I said, I do think that a lot of people are asking this question. And if you have another question that you've been asking yourself about social media, email marketing, podcasting, building a sustainable business, anything is fair game here, and you would like me to do a special request episode for you, just send me a DM on Instagram and I am more than happy to do that. So until then, I will see you next week on the Go Get Great podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Go Get Great. I hope you found some useful tips and tricks that can help you make life and business work together. If what I said resonates with you, please share it on social media, and don't forget to tag at Brittany Miller Socials so that I can celebrate you for taking those first steps towards achieving greatness. Remember, success doesn't happen overnight. It takes dedication, hard work, and a lot of spirit. So don't be afraid to dream big and go after what you want. Keep striving for greatness. You get closer with every step forward, no matter how small they may seem. Until next time, go get great.